Hey everybody, this is Perch. The old question of like who's more powerful, Marvel and DC. It's an ongoing one. Generally speaking, whichever company the reader likes better, they find a way to make their characters more powerful. The whole thing I think's gotten spoiled a little bit, and as we read this letter, it's this is kind of the spoiler for the answer. But I think the entire thing has I don't know, largely been wrecked by both companies will at times just pull out some kind of crazy power MacGuffin, and that just it's like, see, there's more power here than anything else in the entire. This is it, and it just kind of come out of nowhere half the time. A lot of this stuff is not built up, and it doesn't even make a lot of sense. And so the question of who's more powerful, it's like, well, whoever's got the most recent comic book coming out where one of the writers is trying to answer that question. And like Al Ewing is one of the worst in terms of just whipping out some random thing, some element, some cosmic deity that just never existed before now. Like this character controls even the comic book that you're reading in your eyeballs. It's like, oh, okay. I guess it gets kind of silly for after a while, because I think for several years it was a legitimate question you could kind of really work your head around. But in more recent times, it's just become like silly. And DC does the same thing. It's Josh Williamson and Snyder when he did the death metal and kind of different things. It's like here's something more powerful than ever before, and so it kind of wrecks that ability to do a real analysis, because there's some mystical magical thing you've never heard of just waiting around the corner that could this being is more powerful than the reality of the person reading the comic, and it's reading a comic of you reading the comic because it's so anyway. But let's read this mail. It says, "Dear Perch, I was wondering which cosmology you think is better and stronger, Marvel or DC. Personally, I think DC's is better and a bit stronger than Marvel's. If you look at DC's map of the multiverse by Morrison, it seems more orderly and logical as you progress through the layers from single universes to the multiverse, to the bleed, to the god, to the monitor's sphere, to the eventual source and overvoid, not to mention the dark multiverse. Can't forget about the dark multiverse. The dark multiverse is a fine idea. I'm not, I'm not shitting on that, but we did see way too much of the Batman Who Laughs after a while. It's like that character that character was everywhere for a period of time, and that's just gone. Anyway, Marvel has its multiverse, the Negative Zone, Realm of Manifestation, Oblivion's Realm, the White Hot Room, etc. The one above all. Let's not forget that the House of Ideas. Anyway, but it's not as vast as DC's. This alone, in my opinion, makes DC stronger than Marvel. For example, if you look at the placement of monitors, they would be stronger than their Marvel counterparts, the Celestials, or look at their Marvel counterpart, or look at the true form Darkseid, who I think is stronger than, say, a true form Odin. But overall, if Marvel is a 1, DC would be a 1.25. Not much, but still significant. Okay. I was curious about what you have to say about this. As a longtime comic book reader, I got into comics when I was 10, and I'm 21 now. I'm aware this is more of a power scaling versus battle comic book talk than the usual stuff you get in your channel. You mean you're not curious what Vita thinks on the topic? Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. And again, it's like, as I said at the beginning, if we're taking out kind of the last, let's say, 8 years of escalation and silliness, I probably agree with you. Although Marvel has stated multiple times with Eternity and with their infinite multiverse that there are, more worlds, more possibilities, everything else. And then you have to kind of consider, well, did Hickman wreck a lot of those and then they returned? And like, how infinite are we now at this point? And that's where you get to just, there's as many universes as the writer wants there to be at any given time to fit the story that they're creating. And so it becomes very, very hard to assess. I think that Marvel's gods, and when I say God, like not gods, but cosmic entities, the in-betweeners, the eternity, and these character chaos and order. I think that those have been written as more cosmically powerful than DC's equivalent. However, DC, I think historically, if you take out more recent kind of multiverse shenanigans, I think DC has established kind of more power, and as you said, more structure. I agree with that. So I don't know. It kind of goes down to unordered chaos versus kind of at least a slightly more organized universe. And in that world, I kind of, depending on the point of time, I agree with you. I think DC's probably um, kind of written itself to be more powerful from a cosmology perspective. I think I think that fits. Um, I think I would love to have a really good argument. This would be a great argument to have in a comic store, because I feel like there's a lot of interesting things you could bring to the table. And if you did set the ground rule of we're not gonna get into the kind of the more recent, bananas developments where power and multiverse and cosmos is concerned, and you really kind of stuck to, it's like, well, what's Darkseid's power level, compared to a Thanos or an Odin, and what level of Thanos are you? I mean, like, we're talking Darkseid versus Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. Okay, well, the Infinity Gauntlet can do a lot, but it's not always written that way. So what about the Infinity Gauntlet versus kind of the New Gods and their ability? Like, I think as you kind of start to sort some of this stuff out, it would be a fascinating argument and a fun one to have. Um, I mean, DC in general wrote their characters to be more powerful than Marvel, kind of on purpose for a long period of time. And if you take it to its conclusion, it's like, all right, so we got these the spectrum of light rings running around, and we have hundreds of thousands of those, of different lights, of different rings, and all the spectrum. Like, how many rings exactly do we have? It's more than thousands. I think it's more than tens of thousands. I mean, if you take all of them, there's tons. And these rings kind of allow people to do close to anything. That's a massive power source just right there. What is the Marvel equivalent to that? I mean, well, the X-Men can't die. I mean, yeah, okay, but people don't seem to die very much in DC either and have it stick. So I don't know. You've got the Lazarus pits over in DC. So I think you've got a lot of kind of different, bigger power level items. Um, but in general, DC, Superman, very powerful character. Wonder Woman, power kind of fluctuated depending on who was writing her. I mentioned the Green Lanterns, the Flash, and all the Flashes can travel through time and break the Speed Force. So you kind of, as you go through, you realize that these characters are, DC overpowers their characters in general. And then they have to come up with really kind of bizarre ways to weaken them up again. Like, Green Lantern is prone to yellow and wood, and Wonder Woman likes to be tied up. Whatever, I think that there are. It gets to be a little bit sillier. Marvel did do the more down to earth, so maybe that was why whenever they get into cosmic, they'd get into super esoteric. You always got the feeling that some of that cosmic writing, with like the guy was on some massive shrooms at the time and trying to figure it out. But anyway, we'll ask. I'll ask some other people what they think. But I think you're probably right. Again, as long as you ignore kind of more recent developments where it's, all bets are off, kind of dealing with cosmic power levels. So there you go. There's my answer. Thank you very much. That was a fun one to get through. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below what you think is most powerful. If you think Marvel or DC from a cosmic perspective, and just your general feeling. It doesn't matter. And keep in mind, the mail writer didn't say that it really mattered to them. They're just curious. I don't think there's any value to be gained. Like, I like Marvel better because it's more powerful from a cosmos perspective. Like, I don't know that anybody is seriously making that argument, and I don't know that it would matter. Like, the winner of that's not going to suddenly get a bunch of new readers. It's just kind of curious to talk about. It's interesting. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail, and thanks for listening.